Arguments. They can happen in any home, in any family, maybe even yours. It's normal for grown-ups in the family to argue sometimes. But what happens when the bickering doesn't stop? When things become really nasty, even violent? It's known as domestic abuse or domestic violence, and more often than not, it happens behind closed doors. My parents argued all the time when I was a kid, and it made me feel upset and unsettled. But it's something that happens in all families. Grown-ups get tired, stressed about work, and a bit grumpy. And although it can be a bit upsetting, it's just a part of family life. Adults know it's not nice to argue, and usually know when to stop. Domestic abuse is different. That's when an adult deliberately hurts or bullies a grown-up in the family or somebody they went out with. Now, I know this happens between adults, but that doesn't mean that children aren't affected by it. We know that hundreds of thousands of children witness grown-ups in their lives hurting each other with words or violence every year. And it can happen to anyone. Today, Alesha Dixon is a pop star and top judge on TV talent shows, but when she was little, she witnessed domestic violence firsthand.
I remember walking in the house and my mum had a black eye, and I remember saying to my mum, and I don't know why I asked the question because I knew the answer, but I still said, "How did you get that black eye?" And my mum said that she banged her head on the side of a cupboard. I knew that she was lying, she didn't know what else to say, she was obviously embarrassed. But I remember as a child being annoyed with the fact that she lied when my brother and I could blatantly see what was going on. My experience of domestic violence started when I was about 7, 8 years old and went on for about 2 or 3 years. It was my mum who experienced the violence, and my brother and I were aware that it was going on, and on occasion we also saw some of the violence too. Me and my brother definitely were scared. You know, I think not knowing what could happen from one day to the next, you're constantly living on edge. It just affects everything. It affects your schoolwork, it affects your mood, how you feel, and you're constantly worried for your mum. You feel a mixture of feelings, you know, you feel angry, you feel frustrated, you feel scared, you feel hurt, like you feel all sorts of things. And it's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders as a young child, you know. I remember coming home one day and my mum's ex-partner had left the house, he'd gone. And I'm thankful that my mum was strong enough to put an end to it. There's a lot of people that keep this closed, a lot of people don't say anything. I would encourage people to talk, to say things, tell a friend, tell a teacher, even if you've got the courage, pick up the phone and call the police. Because the more people that know, the more chance you have of ending it. I honestly, hand on heart, I don't know another way for a violent situation to end unless somebody has the courage to say something. It definitely took me a long, long time to heal and deal with the things that I saw. I remember being, you know, at teenage years, becoming an adult, and still being haunted by that vision of my mum being attacked. And I've definitely worked through it. You know, I'm definitely at a point now where I can hopefully help other people that are in that situation, people that have been through that situation, and say, look, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, you can live a great life, you can have a fantastic life, you can have healthy relationships, but it's really, you know, but it takes time, you know, nothing happens overnight.
Because domestic abuse happens behind closed doors at home, people often find it difficult to tell anyone about it. And even for someone as famous as Alesha, it's still not easy to talk about. For kids going through this kind of thing, though, there are people who can help. Holly and Dean's mum was beaten up by her ex-boyfriend for years, and when things got really bad, the children would call the police. We've changed their names and disguised their voices for their safety.
He was nice at first, everything was fine. But then when we had another child together, that's when he changed. The violence started then, like just overnight it happened. I never expected it.
We used to tap my mum, strangle her, hitting her. They were screaming all the time. It went on for about 6 or 7 years, constantly.
hated Mum's ex-boyfriend because it would hurt me mum and jump on her and all that, throw her about and everything. He'd do it in front of us.
As they got older and the years went by, he didn't care if he did it in front of the children. Mainly it was in the house, behind closed doors.
Police emergency.
My mum's boyfriend's been aggressive.
I was in my bedroom. It was like early hours in the morning, and I heard loads of shouting, so I'd woken up.
He's completely trashed the place.
He used to hit me, he'd lock the door so I couldn't get out. He'd take my phone off me so I wasn't able to phone no one. He'd just try and keep me cornered until he decided that he'd finished.
I need to call them because Mum was shouting, "Stop it and get off me," and you're hurting me.
The police are on the way already. There's a couple of police officers on the way, all right?
They were telling me to calm down and stay on the phone and just tell me what's happening.
All right, you're doing really, really well there. I'll stay with you until they actually arrive.
When the police came, it would make the children feel safer for a bit, but Holly and Dean knew if things were really going to get better, their mum had to put an end to her violent relationship for good.
I wanted her to leave him because how vicious he was, but I knew she didn't because she loved him and he got into her head. I said, if you don't end it with him, I'm going. I can't stay with this anymore. And that's when she finally left him.
Now I'm out of it and I look back, I think, why the hell did I do that? Why have I put up with it for so many years? But you do, and I don't know. I can't really say why.
Now Mum's ex has left, it's like a happy place. I do feel safer. I'm not as jumpy, but I still worry.
We are really close now. We do more family things together because he never wanted to do anything. We go walking every Sunday somewhere nice. There's loads of nice places around here to go walking, in the hills and in the mud. There's just loads of things to look forward to now. It's like a new start.
It's like nothing stopping us from being a family again.
Holly and her family are slowly getting their lives back together. The police often get involved in cases of domestic violence, so I wanted to find out what actually happens when a 999 call comes through. It's Friday night, and I'm spending some time with the Metropolitan Police here in London to see just how many homes they're called to deal with domestic incidents. In fact, one of the most common reasons people dial 999 is because they're being threatened or attacked by a member of their family. And I don't have to wait long before we are on the move. It's estimated that across the country, someone calls the police about domestic violence every minute.
When neighbours have heard screaming and shouting coming from the flat, that's about all we know at the moment.
The police officers hadn't been on duty for even a minute before they got the first call of domestic violence. We're just waiting for the police officers to come out and tell us what happened.
It's just an argument. So there's nothing for anyone to be arrested for. There's no children in the flat, they're just by themselves.
Quite often there are children in the homes the police are called to. I guess understandably, if children are witnessing domestic violence, it'd be very difficult for them to pick up the phone and call the police.
Calling police is the right thing to do, and their parents don't need to know it was them calling. When we arrive, we can say it was a neighbour, somebody heard some screaming and shouting.
Another call to the police has come in. Andy, where are we heading now?
To another domestic, man and female, both drunk, as far as we know.
There really is no messing about. If there's any phone call that comes through of domestic violence, then the sirens are on and they're straight there.
First on scene, we'll go up and find out what's going on.
It's kind of strange standing here wondering what's going on in there, because you get a real sense of what the police have got to do. You know, they're in a house at the moment or in a flat dealing with this domestic incident, yet there are so many other windows and so many things happening behind them that we're just unaware of until you actually get that call on the radio. It's a real eye-opener how big the problem of domestic violence is in just one part of one city. This call-out is more serious than the last, and the police have called for backup.
OK, what we've had here is a man and female in a relationship. They've had an argument and he's picked up a picture and an ornament and thrown it around the flat. So he's been arrested.
And this is the kind of thing that you see on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah, yeah. This is very typical of a domestic violence call that we get.
It's crazy, isn't it? When you're part of a family where fighting takes place, it can seem like the grown-ups are never going to change, but sometimes they do. Connor's dad realised that his behaviour was wrong and was so ashamed of himself that he decided to do something about it. We've hidden their identities to protect the family as they start their new life.
It could happen anywhere, anytime. The smallest of things could set me off. Even just being asked a question, I would be too busy doing what I was doing and I would go into a rage and mouth off.
The arguing was like really high pitch, lots and lots of shouting. We always used to be lonely. We did get locked in our room with a little bit of string around the door, and we always used to try and get out because before my mum said that we used to walk out in the living room and play around, and then Dad didn't like it, so he put a piece of string around the door.
They had no lives whatsoever, so everybody in the household was walking on eggshells. I was like a ticking time bomb, ready, waiting to go off.
I never knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going to happen next or anything. I'd just be sat in my bed or something, just playing on the DS, ignoring it. The arguing at home made me behave bad, like my dad. I was always bullying other children, shouting at them.
Being angry with a woman or a child would be a way of pulling them down to my level. It's almost like a punishment. This is how I felt, this is how you should feel.
I thought it was my fault sometimes, because I always got shouted at and stuff. It wasn't my fault.
I thought everybody got smacked and screamed and shouted at. I just thought it was all normal. You know, my dad told me that I got far worse than that, you know, so I thought it was acceptable, and it's not acceptable, not at all.
Connor's dad knew what he was doing was wrong and that it had to stop, so he found the right people to help him change his behaviour.
He said he was going to change. I didn't believe him at the time, but then he actually did.
I could see a pattern. Lost my wife. I thought, I don't want to lose my partner, and I didn't want to lose my children, so that's why I wanted the help. I feel ashamed of what I've done, and it makes you feel sick to your stomach to think of the way I was.
He's really, really much better.
I want to move on and just, you know, keep doing well. Nothing's perfect, but it's 1,000 times better than what it was.
My dad is the most important part of my family, and I'm pleased that he's changed, and I'm just happy.
It's really tough to talk about domestic violence. It's something most adults just don't want to discuss. But the stories of Holly and Dean, Connor and his dad, and Alesha show us there are ways to get through it. If domestic violence is happening in your family, there are people who can help. Don't be afraid to ask an adult you trust for help. More information is on the Newsround website. And remember, all families argue sometimes, but domestic violence is different.
I would encourage people to talk, to say things, tell a friend, tell a teacher, because the more people that know, the more chance you have of ending it.